It's our Upstream from Politics segment because, of course, politics is downstream from culture, and culture goes well beyond just pop culture, film, movie, television, and books. No, a culture is everything that happens outside of Washington, D.C. and electoral politics, and last I checked, that's kind of important. Joining us again in studio is our friend Andrew Klavan. He is the author of the new book, A Strange Habit of Mind, and of course, not only an acclaimed screenwriter and novelist, but also a podcaster on the Andrew Klavan Show at Daily Wire. Andrew, thank you for being here again.
Great to see you.
Well, you wrote magnificently in your book about becoming a Christian and turning it. And remind me again the name of the book. I'm sorry.
The Great Good Thing.
The Great Good Thing, and it is. I have recommended that book to so many people who were sort of searching and finding their way. It's wonderful, and knowing that about you, and knowing about how important your faith is in your life. You've been following the abortion issue for a while. I was actually listening to your podcast when you heard the Dobbs decision, when Roe v. Wade
while I was on the air.
Yeah, it was emotional.
Yeah.
Here we are in the post-Roe universe now. First of all, so far, how do you think it's going?
Well, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I think we're kind of the dog who caught the car. In some ways, it's as a political issue, it's a difficult one. As a moral issue, it's completely clear. And I think that we're going to have to get used to the fact that what the court did, rightly, in my opinion, is it cast the matter back to the states, which means different states are going to make different decisions. The important thing to me, the thing that moved me so much when the decision came down, was not just the fact that people told you it could never happen, and it did, which always is incredibly moving, but also the fact that it's one thing for a state or a person to say you can do this. It's another thing for the highest court in the land to say it is your right to take another person's life. I mean, that is like slavery when they said, no, this person, because he's an African, has no American rights. That's a terrible, terrible thing, and it makes the entire country wicked in some sense, whereas now I feel that each person is going to have to make his own choice, each state is going to have to make their own choice, and that's the way it should be.
You're so good at analyzing the language that people use, whether in the culture or in politics, because, well, you're a writer. And so, of course, you immediately saw Democrats and the media using this language of it. The first time ever that the Supreme Court has taken a right away. Now, last I checked, the Supreme Court authorized Franklin Roosevelt to actually intern Japanese citizens during the World War II. That's kind of taking some rights away. So first of all, it's a lie, as usual. But that language is powerful. And do you think that conservatives are equipped with the right language to sort of push back? Because you get, what do you say to the 10-year-old rape victim who is impregnated? And we've been fighting this Supreme Court battle that we've almost, I think, forgotten how to fight the fundamental moral question.
Yeah, I think that's really true, and it's very difficult when you see a conservative or a Republican candidate get frozen like a deer in the headlights by a question that anyone could have told him was going to come. There are three basic ways that pro-abortion people defend abortion. One is they leave out the element of time. So they say, well, this person doesn't have the ability to choose or to feel pain. Or you think, well, when you're asleep, you don't have the ability to choose. I can't kill you because eventually you'll wake up. And the same thing is true of a baby in the womb. Eventually it will be just as complete a person as you are, and that time is the element in which we live. And another thing that they frequently say are just things that any murderer would say. I couldn't have had my rock band if I hadn't killed this person. It's like,
it's true.
It's like saying I couldn't have slept with this other woman if I hadn't killed my wife.
But these actresses in Hollywood are applauded. It's like, oh, I would have never gotten that 3-film deal if I had. It's like, why are we celebrating that?
But the third argument they have, which is their one argument that makes sense, is that some situations are tragic. There's no good answer. There's no good answer to a young person who has been raped by her father and now is pregnant. We don't have a good answer to that. That's what makes it a tragedy. And so we have to understand that the world has tragedy in it. Politicians don't like to talk about tragedy because they like to pretend they have an answer to everything. But it's one thing to talk about that, but the first thing out of their mouth should be, that is 0.001% of abortions. Most abortions are, I don't want a girl, I don't want this child now, I don't want it to be a Sagittarius when I wanted, a Leo or whatever, and there's a lot of that going around, and there's a lot of economic reasons, which is just not a good reason to kill someone.
Well, I was thinking back in the aftermath of this to a poor woman over 40 years ago in Jamaica, and she found herself pregnant. Didn't think there'd be much opportunity to have a child, was urged to abort the baby, went to get the abortion, and for whatever reason, and maybe we can't explain, that didn't end up happening, and she ended up having the baby. And I think about that because a few months ago I appointed her daughter to be the first Jamaican American justice in the history of the Florida Supreme Court. I just think we're better when everybody counts. I understand not everyone's going to be born in perfect circumstances, but I would like to see everybody have a shot. I'm proud of the 15 weeks that we did. I know Charlie Crist opposes that, even though the baby is fully formed, has a heartbeat, can feel pain, and can suck their thumb. He also supports sex-selective abortions, which is used to discriminate against little girls. He supports dismemberment abortions, where they literally will tear the baby limb from limb. And he supports taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up until the moment of birth, and that is wrong.
Or, tragically, as we're seeing in some countries who believe to be progressed in advance, that, Iceland, I think, is bragging about the fact that they have almost zero birth rate now for Down syndrome children. But we know how that happened, guys.
I know. It's like you're saying we've solved the problem of the Jews in Poland during the World War II.
And this is a disabled rights issue, too. And I would hope that the disabled rights advocates would also recognize exactly the horrific road to hell that this leads to.
There's only one real question, and the question is a baby in the womb a human being? And I just don't see an argument that says it's not.
Given that, conservatives now, and I think it's been discussed quite a bit since the Dobbs decision, we sort of have a new role here. It's not just fighting and praying in front of Planned Parenthood locations and making sure that judges are well positioned to be able to help this along to get rid of Roe v. Wade. Now, I agree with many Democrats who say, oh, you don't care, you got to be there when the baby is born now. You got to be there. It's like, yes, actually, conservatives do need to change the conversation. We have a responsibility, do we not, to make sure that we're there to help these babies who are born.
Yes, and it's a two-pronged fight. It's a political fight, but it's also a cultural fight. I'm a big believer that politics is the art of the possible. If you're in a far-left state, you're not going to win a complete ban on abortion, and all you're going to do is lose elections so that the people who want, basically infanticide are going to win. So you take what you can get. Yeah. You ask for what you think you can get, and you take what you can get. At the same time, we have to create a culture of life, and this is something that I have even noticed that when I'll have pro-life people on my show, when I'll interview them, I'll say, what does that look like? And they don't know. And you're right. It looks like taking care of people in crisis, taking care of people who have gotten pregnant and can't afford the baby, don't want the baby, don't want their lives impacted that way. Look, there's all kinds of things we can build. We've got to start building them.
But it doesn't need to be the government. See, that's the thing. And the good news is everything you just laid out there, conservatives, especially faith-based conservatives, we're good at that. Yep. We've been doing that. Yep. And so that's where we need to step up with those solutions.
Yeah, and just make people understand that this is a child, and the child has a right, and the child didn't ask to be born. The child is there for a reason.
You made the mention just now about electoral politics, how it's D.C., Andrew. We have to shoot everything through that lens, who wins, who loses. Yeah. I'll be bold. If getting rid of Roe v. Wade means that Kevin McCarthy doesn't get to be the speaker this November and Mitch McConnell has to delay being majority leader again, I'm okay with that. Honestly, I think that's a fair trade-off. But do you see it working out that way? Do you think that it's having an impact on the election?
I think it's having an impact, and that is, I think that Democrats are energized by this, and they are more likely to turn out. So it's going to have a turnout impact, and that's important in a midterm election because turnout is traditionally low. But I think that if it's handled right, the people who handle it correctly are not going to get as badly burned by it as the left would like to think. I mean, the senatorial candidate who says, listen, I'm going to go with the voters in my state. The Supreme Court has tossed it back to the state. I'm here to represent the voters in my state. Let the voters decide, because the Senate has nothing to do with it now.
Right.
So that's a smart thing to do. The people who keep their powder dry and say, well, I can win a 15-week ban here. Right. I can win a 20-week ban here. And my opponent, and basically the Democrats are saying you should be able to kill a baby a minute before birth. Mm-hmm. That's a baby. That baby could come into the world and grow up to be your son or daughter. Yeah. So they are so extreme that we actually have a way of fighting back. But it does energize them.
Or as Mother Teresa once famously told Hillary Clinton, you probably would have had a female president by now, but you aborted her.
Ouch.
She's a saint.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrew Klavan, always good to talk with you.
Great talking
Thank
to
you for bringing some sober seriousness to this program. Let's not let it happen again. A Strange Habit of Mind is the book. You should get it and buy it as a Christmas present. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.